when I had that conversation, the words that came out of my mouth right from the very start and for the months of build to that stupid match were, we're going to get trained animals, correct? We're going to get highly trained animals now. And I was specific. All right. I was like highly trained animals, all from the same training camp, all under verbal direction, because you can train the dogs on verbal command to do things. They're all going to be trained to operate on verbal commands, because I'm envisioning you have trainers standing outside the cell verbally commanding these dogs who are now inside the cell like sharks surrounding the ring. Oh, yeah, we're going to do that every week. Let me tell you, I cannot unequivocally let you know how much every single week I reiterated that request. And when I showed up in Charlotte, North Carolina, I noticed there were about 8 to 10 dogs with 8 to 10 different owners. And I found out they had just reached out that day to a veterinarian clinic and got a list of owners who had Rottweilers. And one of them had some obedience training. And lo and behold, what a surprise. It was a shitball of a match. Why? Because you literally built the entire crux of the story around these animals that you couldn't utilize because they were urinating, fornicating, and defecating so much you couldn't show them on TV. To where two owners were exchanging phone numbers for puppy rights of the dogs. They were fucking while they were on pay-per-view.
What was the original finish of that? Did you have to like improvise after? I'm sure you couldn't actually go out to the floor.
That was the idea. You had to escape. And you know, they had a deal where Bossman had a guard under his shirt, and he was going to get bit by one of the dogs, and then while the dog had a hold of him, I was going to escape and get out of the cage. That was the idea. And it was just, you know, and granted, I mean, you know, regardless of what the circumstances are, you got to take shit and make shoe polish. And that's just at the, you know, the end of the day. But, you know, even Vince apologized to me afterwards. Oh, we'll make it up to you. Never did, you know. That's and you know, and again, I take responsibility because once I go out there, I got to make the best of what no matter what the platform is you're given.
Was it always part of the plan to try and snip the top of the Hell? This was years ago. I remember watching it, but was it always part of the plan to try and snip out some of the top of the cell and then climb out that way?
You know, I can't. I think so. I think it was a lot of that was improvised because we were really in a bad spot because we literally, you know, were put in a position. And look, I'm the one that gets all the heat for this thing. Ray was in there with me. Okay. Bossman was just equally as responsible. So we were both put in a terrible position. The entire angle, the entire story, the entire match, the entire gimmick was all built around these animals. And look, even people in porn know you can't work with children or animals because they will always upstage you. And these dogs certainly upstaged us. There was nothing we could do. We were dealt a really, really shitty hand. You know,
Pepper was chip trained though, or was that just someone's dog as well?
Pepper was somebody's dog. I literally, in the Chihuahua, I said, "You're going to get me a trained animal to interact with. I need a trained animal to interact with, so that I can do things." Brought me again. In Detroit, contacted a veterinarian clinic and brought me a dog that, you know, they had found an owner, had a Chihuahua puppy. And the whole idea of that was, you know, Vince had went and seen the movie Son of Sam, and where the killer was hearing voices from the dog and that he was talking to the dog. And the idea was I would hear voices from this dog and speak to him and, you know, interact with him like it was a person. And then it was all based off of that. And Mr. Fuji, which is a real story, apparently had a neighbor with a dog he hated and hated the neighbor and basically killed the dog and fed it to his neighbor for dinner one night. And that's a true story. And that was the whole idea, was that, you know, Bossman would kidnap my dog and then, you know, feed it to me. And then we'd pay it off in this, you know, from hell match. And I kept going. We need trained animals. Oh yeah, we'll get them. And then I show up, and you know, and they've got, you know, just, random animals with random owners. That the biggest high spot they had with the dogs, that involved the dogs, was as they were running out, the overweight owner tripped on the rug and big splashed his own dog. So
just to say
I'll always
on
cherish that memory.
on what you said before is I used to do a podcast with Don Morocco, and he's told me many Fuji stories where he fed people their own pets. So it
Oh,
wasn't just once. It was quite. Generally, he
uh,
used to catch strays and then
mm,
just serve them up. And just before I close out this podcast, because I had the Iggy, the big thumbs up to
from
go home, whose telephone number was it that you held up on Raw and said, please call this number if you find Pepper?
Oh, that was Val Venus's. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I held it up on Sunday Night Heat, and it didn't really get a lot of response. And then Russo came to me again. We were in Boston, and he's like, "Hey, you got to make that poster again." I go, "I do." He goes, "Yeah, and we're going to do a backstage promo with you on live TV." Yeah. So the camera guy and I were, yeah, I went, "Listen, every time I point at this number, I want you to zoom in. Every time I put," he goes, "Why?" I go, "Just, it's a phone number. Just," when he goes, "Whose number is it?" I go, "It's Val's." So, you know, so every time, and about 2:30 in the morning, we're getting something to eat, and all of a sudden ring, and Val's like, "You son of a bitch." He put my phone number on Raw, and he had thousands of phone calls, literally thousands of phone calls.